The Russians showing off their multiple launch rocket systems. It's an old weapon, but no less devastating for that. Ukrainian soldiers and civilians in the east are living under constant rocket and artillery fire, and the Russians seem to have a never-ending supply. Which is why, when foreign leaders take the train to Kyiv, as the French, German and Italian leaders did today, they know the Ukrainians' first, second and third request will be more weapons. President Macron seems to see himself as something of a Putin whisperer. He's had several conversations with the Russian leader recently, but today he brought a message of solidarity with Ukraine.
Un message d'unité européenne adressé aux Ukrainiennes et aux Ukrainiens, en effet, de soutien pour parler à la fois du présent et de l'avenir, parce que les semaines qui viennent, on le sait, seront des semaines très difficiles.
They made the obligatory tour of Irpin, one of the towns on the outskirts of Kyiv that the Russians occupied, wreaking destruction and killing civilians. President Zelensky was waiting for them in his characteristic green khaki T-shirt, aware that support for Ukraine may be wavering. Some of Mario Draghi's Italian coalition partners are pro-Putin. Olaf Scholz has hesitated to provide German weapons. And Emmanuel Macron has said that Russia shouldn't be humiliated. He's pushing for peace talks.
C'est un point important qu'il faut souligner, c'est qu'à la fin, il faudra que ces discussions aient lieu. On le sait. Et donc il est important aussi, et je salue à cet égard, le fait que, depuis le début, celui qui n'a cessé de demander à parler directement au président Poutine, c'est le président Zelensky.
But President Zelensky is unlikely to want to talk before he gets more weapons and can negotiate from a position of strength.
Це доводить, що Росія не обирає кому і коли погрожувати, не обирає кому в Європі дійсно дарувати безпеку. Російська агресія проти України – це агресія проти всієї Європи, проти всієї об'єднаної Європи, проти кожного з нас, проти наших спільних цінностей. І тільки об'єднаною має бути і наша відповідь.
What do the old people of Privillia in Luhansk think? Leaving can be as dangerous as staying, as the bombardment never stops. Ukrainian soldiers are evacuating those who didn't leave before because they were too poor or bewildered or just had nowhere to go. Shelling hit the town of Pokrovsk, which is 40 miles back from the front line. Those fighting to defend this territory are unlikely to welcome negotiations to give it up.
І сьогодні це буде одна територія, завтра друга, післязавтра третя. Ну і знову ж таки, багато героїв України загинуло заради того, щоб захищати країну в цілому. І ніхто нам цього просто не пробачить, якщо люди гинуть, а ми будемо йти на поступки агресора.
And people are dying. Up to 100 soldiers a day, according to President Zelensky. A sacrifice, they say, not just to defend Ukraine, but all of Europe.
Lindsay Hilton reporting. Well, I'm now joined here in the studio by Lesia Vasilenko, who's a member of Ukraine's parliament, a frequent guest on our program, and it's so nice to see you in person and not just on Zoom from Kyiv. It's good to have you here. When you see the three leaders of Europe talking to your president, when you see the changing dress code, they're all in their suits, he is still a wartime president, and you hear the promise of fast-track EU membership, what do you think they want in return, and what can he offer?
The only thing they should want in return is peace and stability in Europe, and that's a fair request, and Ukraine is happy to keep fighting for that request on our land with our human resources, as we have done in the last 113 days, as well as in the last 8 years that Russia has been waging war, aggression against Ukraine. But to do that efficiently and to actually give a result, Ukraine needs the weapons and needs the support coming from these countries.
And as far as you know, were more weapons, more powerful weapons promised today?
Yes, they were. But it's not about just promises, it's about how quickly these weapons can arrive to Ukraine and in what numbers.
Because there were lots of weapons promised, for instance, by the Germans a few months ago. They still haven't arrived yet.
No, they're still stuck somewhere in transit, and that's not good enough. If Europe wants results, and I believe they do, they need to start delivering.
But the same goes for weapons from Britain and France. I mean, a lot of the weapons that have been promised are stuck in transit. It seems hard to believe.
In all honesty, with the UK providing weapons, there's not so many difficulties. I am in constant contact with officials from the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, and they have not complained once about UK weapons not arriving or not arriving in the quantity that they would like them to see. It's another matter on France and the other countries.
The French president, the German chancellor, and the Italian prime minister have all been criticized for not spelling out that they want Ukraine to win this war. They just say we don't want Russia to win and we don't want Ukraine to lose. They didn't go there today either, did they?
No, they didn't, but it's about time that we start having the discussion. How do we make sure that Ukraine wins? And it's not about Russia losing or not. It's about Russia becoming a country that is safe to live around for all its neighbors.
Are you afraid that Ukraine is losing right now in the east? Because even President Zelensky is telling us that you're losing 100 men or more a day. That's a lot of people to lose, plus all the people who've been injured by Russian artillery. Are you afraid that you're losing in the east?
If you do the math, more people died in these 113 days than in 8 years of war in total. And it's a sad number. And what's even sadder, that the number is becoming just a statistic rather than stories of lives unlived. At the same time, Ukraine cannot be allowed to lose. And Ukraine will do everything possible to keep pushing back. Because if Russia is allowed to, yet again, to get away with land grabs in Europe, there's nothing preventing it from going in for more in 10 years or so.
You heard at the beginning of our program, we're obsessed in this country, as many people are in the rest of Europe and in the United States, with the cost of living, with inflation, with energy prices. The war in Ukraine is not as prominent as it was at the beginning, for obvious reasons. Are you worried that the West is losing interest and that therefore this makes it so much easier for this alliance at the moment to be split?
It's not about losing interest, it's about being human, and the human mind adapts to whatever conditions are there. It takes 21 days to form a habit. A habit has been formed to living with war on the European continent. But that just means that we must make decisions in whole awareness, aware that a habit has been formed and abnormal has become the new normal. And with that in mind, we have to do even more to guarantee a quick win for Ukraine and for Europe.
Do you think that for President Putin, it is more damaging to see Ukraine in the European Union than to see Ukraine in NATO, which of course at the moment has been ruled out? Because that's how this whole thing started in 2014, isn't it?
For Putin, what is damaging is to see Ukraine slip away and become a member of the European family where Ukraine really belongs. Because Putin would love to see Ukraine integrated into Russia, just becoming another oblast in Russia. But essentially, that means that Ukraine will cease to exist as an independent country. This is Putin's goal, of course. But you are absolutely right. The war started back in 2014 when Ukrainians came out in the streets of all the cities in Ukraine and said that we want to be part of the European Union.
Personally, this is 114 days into the war. It's a long time. We've seen winter come and go, spring come and go. We're now in summer. How are you personally coping with all this?
It's difficult, but it's also a flashback from 2014, 2015.
But with much bigger stakes.
At much bigger scale, at much bigger scale. And unfortunately, we can predict what's going to happen next. Russia is going to try to pull everyone into this protracted conflict, really wear everyone out by making people fatigued with the war efforts. And then there will need to be concessions made, presumably, although today the presidents visiting Ukraine have clearly stated that they will not be pushing Ukraine into making concessions. That's a good sign, but we'll see how it plays out come winter.
In one line, what's your message to people watching this interview tonight in Britain?
Just not to give up and just continue supporting Ukraine. It's in everyone's interest. Yes, the prices might be going up. Yes, the sanctions are costing, but really supporting Ukraine is an investment into a long-standing peace in Europe and across the world.
Lesia Vasilenko, thank you very much for coming in.